Welcome to Breaking Down Bits, a conversation about great comedy bits with the comedians who wrote and performed them.
Welcome to Breaking Down Bits. I'm Brian Gendron.
I'm Drew Jordan, and we are back. A little bit of a hiatus. We did the big thing at the festival. Now we're getting back on track, and it feels good. I almost burped right into the microphone. First thing, got to shake off the rookie mistakes and get back in it. We have a great guest today. Happy to, especially because we got to know him really well at the festival, but we'll get into that in just a minute.
Yeah, season 7, man. Let's get this thing moving. So we just kind of started our season 7 at the Riot Comedy Festival, March 23rd through 26th. So we had like 20 headliners in town, and we got to speak to some really fun ones. Ian Lara, Cypher Sounds, and Joe Mackey. What was your callback from that conversation? Remember, or those conversations?
Yeah, I mean, there were some things that just rang true. It seemed like for all of them, maybe minus, well, Joe Mackey was different than everyone else, as he is. But one thing was the hangs. I think festivals are just like, if you're producing a festival or anything like that, producing like a mini festival weekend or whatever, I think it is important to try to schedule in a way that people can get that hang time in. It's how we got a lot of our relationships, and also you kind of get a chance to kind of increase some relationships. I got a lot of time with Ian Lara. It was great to kind of just get to know him a little better as a person. And festivals are a great place to just strengthen relationships. And I think comics look forward to it because I think a lot of these guys are on the road alone so much that festivals are such a nice break from the solitude, I guess, that they typically is their work environment.
Yeah, I think that rang true for all the comics we had on, was getting to hang out with your friends who are all across the country every weekend, and you finally get a weekend together, which seemed to be true. Another thing that I heard was, as comics that get accepted who maybe aren't the headliners yet, it seems like all the headliners are approachable, and you can ask them questions. And of course, with our festival, we did panels and things. So that's just another reason to submit to festivals and get access to the headliners on that festival and take advantage of that access.
Yeah, that's one thing I've heard in some other podcasts, some other people talking about it, how it is kind of interesting how comedians are much more approachable than like musicians or rock stars or whatever. You might not just walk up to some famous rock star, but these comedians who are very well known, very high up on the food chain, almost always are very easily approachable. And I don't know if it's just because of the art form that we do or what it is, but it's cool to be able to like rub shoulders and chat with these people that we respect and maybe have watched from afar forever.
Yeah, comedians, we're just the salt of the earth. So yes, very approachable. But listen, go back and listen to that episode and all of our episodes, breakingdownbits.com, or of course, wherever you get your podcast. And if you'd like to reach out to us and request whatever, we probably won't do it, but maybe we will. Guests, or if you want to be a guest, I don't know, send us a note. You can get us at social media at Breaking Down Bits. And of course, email us breakingdownbits@gmail.com. Man, I think we bring in our guest. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Chris Grace is a comedian, actor, and screenwriter in Los Angeles. He's best known for playing Jerry in the NBC sitcom Superstore and Christian Grey in the off-Broadway musical parody 50 Shades the Musical. He performs stand-up comedy across the country and internationally, and recently won the Riot Comedy Festival National Comedy Contest in his hometown of Houston, Texas.
Chris Grace, everybody. How are you?
Whoa.
Hey.
I am not approachable. Do not approach me. What's up? I like that little credit at the end. Recently won the Riot Comedy National Comedy Contest.
I feel like we had to throw that one in there since we got to watch it happen live. I feel like we had to throw that in there.
That was incredible. You guys added one more headliner to your festival right at the end there. Yeah, because I'm never coming back as a feature.
That's true. We didn't mention that, but Chris is doing a weekend with us as a part of Winning. And that's Thanksgiving weekend.
That's right.
I figure nice. We'll be home with the fam anyway, right?
I'll be home with the family. Other people, hopefully, that's the highest chance of me getting high school friends to come see me.
Ah, true. Yes, the old Thanksgiving high school friend hang. Yeah.
What else are you gonna do? What else can you do? There's nothing else.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thanks for doing it, man. We're so good to see you again. I feel like we had so much fun watching you perform, and maybe not a lot of time to sit down and like really pick your brain a ton. So this will be fun to kind of dive into some stuff that maybe we didn't have a chance to really chat about while we had you in person and got to watch you perform. And I'll say off the top, one of the takeaways from your performances at the festival was the way that you were so loose and flexible. And I think that's what ultimately maybe, contributed to the win, is that you always were present constantly and changed your set dramatically just to fit whatever scenario, situation, audience, like whatever happened. You were so easy to like just shapeshift into the right performance for that audience for that moment. It was very fun to watch.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I want to say that I think this festival is actually like, I think it felt really important to me, and I think it's going to end up being pretty important to me, like in my journey, because it was, so first of all, I kind of hate contests. They put me in a really weird headspace. And so my approach to this contest was like, I just want to be present. I don't want to worry too much about winning each round or whatever. I don't really want to care too much about the score. I just want to like be able to do a good set for the people in front of me in this audience tonight. And I just felt, for me personally, I've done other contests where it's like, okay, I've got my 5 minutes. I'm going to over rehearse that. Now next round, I got to add 2 minutes. Let me go really like time out what I add and all that stuff. And I just was trying to like release myself from the like holding on to it too tightly. Some argue I let it loose too loose. But I mean, it was part of me. Like, it's something I've been working on over the last about year and a half, is trying to be more organic and like trying to be just like, if I know the material, like I don't need to over rehearse my material. It's in me somewhere, and I try to just be there with the people. And I mean, I've done a lot of sets lately where I don't even write out the set list. I have my jokes in me somewhere, and I'll just sort of go out and see what the vibe is last night. And then I have lately, and this was true at the festival, like I was really making a point of like watching all of the show until I got up, so that I could really react off of like what was happening in the room. If I wanted to call back something somebody else said or referred, like, I don't know. I've been feeling increasingly disconnected if I just like hang out outside and just pop in for my set. It feels weird to me, because I'm like, this audience has been here for the whole show. So
I agree.
Yeah.
I always wondered that, like with the green room hang, I'm always like, we're kind of doing them a disservice by not watching what happens. It's the worst when somebody comes out and they're like, hey, somebody already talked to you. They already talked to you. Like, it feels so like it's lost its cohesion as a show.
I was at a show last night, and this is a really tiny thing, but like the fourth comic came out and was like, so how's the show been so far? And I was like, I mean, I understand that you're not going to watch the whole show, but like, don't break the illusion that, you've just been totally not paying attention. I don't know. You're just disconnecting me from the audience experience a little bit. And also took advantage of some timely, spontaneous things that happened in the festival, like the host of a show saying the show was over before I got up on stage. That kind of
thing. That was a big moment that you really capitalized on.
I've never done that before either. So yeah, you're welcome.
Well, we were running like crazy that week, hosting hours of shows and bouncing back and forth. And so, yeah, it was bound to happen that something would goof up on our end, but you totally worked with it. The crowd got a laugh, and then you just took it. And I think one thing, I don't want to get too deep into this stuff this early, but I think one thing that shocked me and kind of surprised me was that you took that joke almost infused it into the majority of your whole set. You didn't just do one joke and forgot about it. You held on to it and kept bringing it up and kept injecting it into your whole set, which was, I think, probably a genius move in that moment, because, you know, the audience really responded to it.
Yeah, I thought that was genius as well. I wrote that in my notebook afterwards. But, you know, actually,
I'm a genius.
Well, I have a column that says, "Was I a genius today?" and I check it off for each day.
Yeah.
No, I think it's more a reflection of I'm trying to keep intact whatever my relationship with that audience through that whole set. So, you know, actually, one thing that has been a struggle, I would say, one of my comedy idols, Jimmy Pardo, who does a lot of like crowd work, a lot of off the cuff stuff. I was talking to him about it because a big challenge that I have is being flexible and being like, you know what, I'm going to go up there and just kind of riff off the room or whatever. And then I'm going to go into material. And that little stutter step going from, it's been so loose and fun where I'm talking to this guy, you know, whatever. And then being like, so, you know, I was on a road trip recently, you know, like that's been and I think in that set, it like the transition worked smoothly. It doesn't always work smoothly, and that's something that's one of the muscles I'm trying to build up, is because you go from being super present to like, okay, now I'm saying something that I wrote 6 months ago or whatever. And I think they can't articulate that, but I think an audience can feel that sometimes.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a moment that you have to handle, because yeah, you're right. It goes from being so present, so about what's happening in this room, to just this random like, so I was thinking, you know, and it just gives just one beat of weirdness for the audience to make that transition.
Yeah, and I think part of it might just be, hey, you just got to get used to getting over that weird beat, you know? But also, I am trying to be a little more flexible with the structure of my sets, so that if I have something spontaneous that happens and it makes me think of a bit that I have, that I can sort of I can link to it in an organic way. I think that's an easier way to get back into the material. I was like really inspired by all the stuff that Gary Shandling has talked about with his work, where he really was trying to resist like writing out bits word for word. He was taking this sort of like Buddhist Eastern approach to just being present and like just connecting and communicating with people. And, you know, as an Asian person, I feel like I should take that same approach.
Well, let's back up. One thing we always try to start off with here in the podcast is take it back to square one and just ask, how does Chris Grace write comedy?
Well, my whole life has been a series of like, I think I'm one way, but I'm actually the other. Like I thought I was straight and I wasn't. No, no, like when I was coming up, like I went to acting school, and when I came up from high school into college studying acting, if you had asked me what I thought of myself, I would have said that I was like a very hard worker, not the most talented person, but you know, I work and get better and that kind of stuff. And then in college, I was like, wait, I'm actually really lazy and quite talented, which is it was just the opposite of what I thought, right? And then it's so arrogant for me, but it was like a real. I mean, to be in this business, you have to have a little bit of like, you know what, I am good at these things, right? Anyway, so with writing, even 5 years ago, I think I would have told you like I like to write out bits. I am a disciplined joke writer, and I am like I've considered myself a pretty good joke writer. And I'm like not a person that writes from stage. I don't like riff and like find it or whatever. And this last 2 years, I'm like, oh, I'm starting to be the other kind of comic, where I just have a notion and I find some stage time and I sort of say it out loud, and I end up like crafting it from the stage. So it's like really different for me. I think I'm a hybrid of both, but I've just been surprised lately by how many bits have been like almost the first or second time I ever do it is like on stage and saying it just in front of people. It's been exciting, like to sort of explore writing that way, as opposed to I really was before like open a Google Doc, I want to write about, let's say Houston traffic or whatever, and then like let me brainstorm and stuff. And I still do that sometimes. I think in the end, I'm probably going to have to do both because I think different kinds of jokes come out of the processes. And I am like, I'm wary of being a comic that feels like to be totally candid, I'm a little wary of being a comic that's like, yeah, I just get up and riff every week, because you do see those comics who, one, I think they sort of take for granted how much stage time they get. They aren't necessarily using it to entertain the audience sometimes. But I'm also I want to keep a foot in both worlds, because I also don't want to be the comic that's just like, man, he's great when he like riffs, but then when he gets into his material, he's like not as good,
Yeah, when you just curious, if you have an example, cool. If not, we can talk in more generic or bigger, broader terms. But when you do bring a thought on stage and it's not fully fleshed out, it doesn't have, you're kind of like taking it to see what happens. How much are you bringing with you on stage? Do you have at least one punchline? Is it just a premise? How much you stepping on stage with when you're doing that?
Yeah, I think I have some notions in my head. I might jot out some notes like in a phone or something like that, but like I have a bit I'm going to try this week. I'm going to be in Cleveland, and I'm not going to be able to like really try it on stage before. So we'll see how it goes. And it's a really, I will say like, it's kind of a hacky bit. And all it is just a bunch of puns on OnlyFans, which I know people have done. So it's like a mostly gay show. And I'm just going to say like, I don't have an OnlyFans, but I do have, a whole, I have a site where I just talk about Mexican desserts called OnlyFlans or whatever. But it's not so much that the individual puns, I think, are, because I know if I go on Twitter, I'll find like 100 of those. In my mind, the experiment is I want to sort of see how long I can torture the audience with it.
It becomes funny after time, or enough time goes by, then that becomes funny.
There's a thing that Gaffigan has done where he'll like talk about like Hot Pocket or wherever, and then he'll be like, how many more jokes is he going to make about Hot Pocket? Like I kind of want to experiment. Yeah, I want to experiment with this, like how long can I go on these horrible and also because it's very different from the rest of my material. But so here's the fork in the road. Like I thought about like, should I sit down and like write out all these puns, and really map out how I want to do it? Or like in my mind, I have an idea of doing 3 in a row. That's like, and I don't know if this is going to be funny. It's funny to me, but like the idea would be like, I don't drive cars or trucks, only vans. I don't wear Nikes or Converse, only Vans, and I don't like Jim Morrison, only Van. And like the idea is to do 3 in a row. They're exactly the same. With
rule of 3, it's proven. I mean, there's no reason if you enjoy it and it's in the format like a rule of 3, it'll work. If you're enjoying it, to some degree it will work.
I think that, but like anyway, I'm probably gonna end up being like having it in my head and just saying it, and just because I kind of actually do want a little bit of because I know it's extremely corny and slightly cringy, right? So I actually don't want to present it as like I wrote this great set of OnlyFans puns. I present them to you as great writing. I actually want it to be like, this is really dumb, and I'm going to make you listen to this, and I'm going to break down your resistance to this. And then we'll move on to something else.
Be careful. I wonder, like, be careful with your attitude going into it, right? I think, like, if you go into it with the playful, and I'm not saying, I shouldn't be saying you, but like as a comic, any comic, if you know that your stuff is going to be a little hackier or sillier, just be sillier and lean into it versus I know how this is going to appear to other comics.
I know.
And that,
you know what?
You know what I mean?
That's just the the inner voice where you're always thinking like, wow, what, because all that matters is like that audience going to like it, like, are they going to laugh at it? That's really, and I, but you do sometimes have that extra thought of like, what does someone else think of me doing this? Like, I think like, I will say at the festival, I knew almost every set. I was like, I'm going to end with my sunglasses bit.
We're going to see that, by the way. Is that okay?
Oh, cool. Yeah. But in my head, I thought, I wonder what people think of me having to have sunglasses. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, am I a prop comic now?
Yeah.
And it wasn't a super strong thought, but it was definitely in my head. Like, when I would put the sunglasses in my pocket, I was like, yeah, here he goes, putting those sunglasses back in his,
Well, I think the part
20 years from now, I'm just like, he's got to find sunglasses at this like Vegas residency or whatever.
Well, I think what you're saying about being playful and trying something new and making it's almost, I guess, I'm not sure if meta is the right term, but like someone who's done something like that I absolutely love is Rory Scovel. Like the beginning of his special when he's like the special that's called like Rory Scovel does stand up for the first time. He comes out and he does this really, some would say, dumb butt stuff joke. And he's just asking the crowd, who's done it? Who's done it? And he just like drags it out. And it's like 5 minutes, feels like, of the show is just him. And then he starts changing the terms and just like, but it's not really going anywhere. But he's having so much fun being playful and silly with this dumb little joke that it, to me, is just, I don't know, it's just pure happiness. The crowd's loving it. Of course, they do wave back and forth through confusion and then funny again. But he's so playful. He makes anything work, I think. Like, that's the style or the strategy.
Yeah, I will just say that Rory Scovel is currently like my biggest influence. Like, his special from last year, I think it was Live Without Fear or something on YouTube. And then I saw him at the Tulsa, the Big Whale festival last year, do I think 45 minutes to an hour or something with this approach. And it was just like seeing like Nirvana and I'm the Stone Temple Pilots. Like it was just really like, oh, you can do this. And he also has an improv background like I do. And I was just like, I can be a lot freer with the way I approach this stuff. So yeah, I mean, there I have other influences for sure, but like recently in the last 18 months, like it's been Rory Scovel has been like in my head a lot.
I think Pete Holmes also is another one of my favorites that kind of has that gear as well. Very silly, very playful. And even if some of his jokes aren't like the most hard hitting, deep, powerful jokes, some of them are just very playful. Like it really does come back to about just having fun with that audience and creating an entertaining experience at the end of the day. If you can do that with crowd work, you can do it with material, you can do it with silly jokes, you can do it with like really perfectly well executed jokes. I mean, that's the fun of comedy, I think, is that you get to work however you want to work, however it does work.
Yeah, I mean, people talk a lot about AI and all that stuff lately, and I feel like one potential advantage that we could mine out of the current situation is that my theory is I think live performance is going to be more valuable, because you can go on ChatGPT right now and it will generate 10 Onion headlines for you that are like pretty good, but you can't generate going to Rudyard's and seeing somebody perform. And another thing that I thought was really interesting that Rory actually said about his approach was that, like, I'll be in Houston Thanksgiving, I'm doing 3 shows, right? He was saying that actually his approach, one of the benefits of his approach is that it gives someone that's a fan of his a reason to buy more than one ticket that weekend. Because if I go and do Friday and 2 shows on Saturday and they're basically all the same, then it's like, cool, like we saw your set from this year or whatever. But if I go Friday and then you come back Saturday and it's 40% different because of what happened that night, then every time I come to town, you're going to be like, yeah, I really like, I should get 2 tickets,
That's how I feel. Sure. Our Jeremiah Watkins is like that. Like, you're going to get at least 40%, I'd say, different. So he's obviously on the festival as well. So that makes me, even as a comic, I want to see all of his sets just to see what happens.
Yeah. So you said you are kind of embracing a little more, kind of riffing on stage and kind of using that as a creation method. But in general, are you pen to paper? Are you Google Doc? Are you just kind of scattered among many different ways of collecting your thoughts?
So most recently, I've been collecting ideas on my phone through an app called Drafts, or through an app called Obsidian, which is where you can take a lot of notes. So I'll dump a bunch of joke ideas in there, and then I will sort of go back through that sometimes. And actually, I've had a lot of luck lately, not typing or writing, but actually like looking at the idea and then just doing voice dictation on my computer and just like talking it out, letting it transcribe it. That has been working pretty well for me for the last like year, I'd say. And then I might sort of throw those into like the little paragraphs into like hey, these are the ones I want to try out. So if I'm somewhere, I can like look at my phone and just sort of refresh my memory like right before. So that's how it's been working lately. Haven't done as I actually do. I do a little bit of like sort of like morning pages / journaling, sort of like mind mapping type stuff. You know, you make a bunch of bubbles, and I'll do that sometimes if I'm trying to like sort of explode a topic and try to get all the meat off of the bone. But that's rarer than it used to be. So a lot of it's been that voice dictation. The voice dictation, it's been great. I just can't say the word dictation, but yeah.
I like. Oh, good.
I've been doing that as well. One of the things I'll do afterwards, it helps my process. I don't know if you do this as well, but I break it into stanzas, like kind of like poetry. So I kind of how I would say it, because it just when you just dictate it, just rambles on into one blob of a paragraph, and then the exercise of going back in and breaking it up. I've also found material in that process, so that's another step I've taken.
I would say actually something I've been thinking lately about comics though is that. And this may not be that applicable for a show about breaking down bits, but like I almost think comics think a little too much about their writing, in the sense that like I think a lot of comics think, especially younger comics, think that they can write the jokes in a bulletproof way that means they cannot fail, and so they get a little fetishizing like. I'm really going to get the nuance of the exact words that will crack the code. And then some of it is like, some of it is just like stage chops. Like, I think that my friends who are comics 15 plus years, I really think some of them, I could just hand them their first notebook ever with the premises they wrote in the first 6 months, and they could make them work. And it's not so much about the premises. I don't know. I think this a lot, like when I look online, like if I happen to be in like Reddit looking at stand-up discussions or whatever, I feel like a lot of people are sort of like in their homes thinking they can write their way out of like the stage fright. And some of it's like, you just got to get up and do it.
That's why recycling material is so valuable. Go back to your old notebooks. You've gotten better. Yeah. There's so much to mine in there.
And you've gotten older and hopefully wiser about the world.
Right.
I don't know about not Drew, but everybody else.
Yeah. I'm still the same old guy. No, I love that though. I love to go back and kind of, it is true. I felt that exact way as a younger comic, thinking like, oh, if I get the word count and the syllable count down and this is a good misdirect, I can tell these words in this order to any audience and it will get a laugh. And kind of discounted the delivery, kind of discounted, like anything else, any other variable, just kind of said, oh, those don't matter. And then at the end of the day, and that's why sometimes I think as comics, we can watch some people go up and they tell a joke and you're like, that's not really that original of a joke, but the audience is loving it. They're having a blast. And you're kind of sitting in the corner like, why do they like this? Because it's like there's more than just one variable to anything, and especially comedy. It's not just about the word choice and the writing. There's more into the recipe that you have to get right, and you can be better or worse at different things, I think. And maybe you are a better writer and you can write your way out of not being great at stage stuff. And then sometimes I think it can be the opposite as well.
I think that, I understand why people talk about the writing so much, because it's just easier to talk about. Like, you can't really be online and say like, hey, what do you think of this like moment when you know, the ice machine in the back triggered at the same time my premise was said out loud and they didn't hear, you know, like, but that's a thing that can tank a joke no matter how well it's written, is, you know, a siren goes off and is like, people are distracted. So I understand why people talk about the writing, but I, like, to your point, there's some like hilarious comics that like make their living doing comedy, and if you write their bits down on paper, you're just like, what is this?
Yeah.
But like, it doesn't matter. It's like, if the audiences like it, they like it.
Yeah, I think the same may be true. I'm a huge UFC, like MMA fan or whatever. And I think the same must be probably true about the thought process that's going through their minds in the middle of a fight.
Yeah.
Like when they see the guy move just a hair and it triggers in their brain that he's about to throw a punch or a kick and they have to respond in that moment. It must be hard to talk about that moment. But I think it's kind of a similar moment on stage. Like sometimes something happens in the audience, someone gives a response. How do you talk about your emotional? It's like it's under the it's almost like another gear that your brain has that you're not really conscious of. Some people have it, some people are working on it, some people don't have it. You're right.
First of all, can you do a thing at y'all's shows where if someone runs the light, you go up and try to like tap them out?
Yeah. They have to defend a takedown at the first minute.
You just break their arm. Yeah, and I think that part of it is, I think that's the part that you have to get through just stage time, because when you first start, let's say, and someone in the audience like says something and you want to respond to it, you guys have been in the audience sometimes when a comic responds to something and you're like, no one really heard that, that's not worth responding to. Don't derail your set to like talk about, because like that person, they know their phone went off or whatever, they shut it off, like, you know, sometimes you're like, it's not worth it, right? But you kind of have to like go for it and then realize like, okay, that wasn't worth it. Or you look at a recording of the set and you're like, oh, this person in the front talked, I thought everybody heard what they said, but it was only like me that heard what they said. And so sometimes like that stuff is just like, you almost have to like go through the like bad versions of those things to like learn, you know, when you should do them.
Yeah.
That's what I've been thinking about. You know, everybody's like, you just got to get stage time. You just got to get stage time. You don't really know what that means as a new comic. And then after the years go by, you're like, oh shit, yeah, I've got to get myself in every shitty situation and good situation so I know how to react, whether I reacted correctly or I need to do it differently next time, and see your peers do the same thing. And that's where those chops come from. And so now I kind of see that.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely learn when you watch someone else handle like a spontaneous situation. And to me, I'm like, obviously you're not going to like steal the like line or the whatever they specifically said, but you can observe like the dynamic of like how they react to something that was spontaneous, and like figure out what that version of it is for yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, there's something to be said just for experience. And I remember early on, I was always noticing that my train of thought and what I was perceiving that the room was thinking was not at all what the room was thinking. And there was this disconnect where I was like you said, like, oh, everyone heard that, or everyone's thinking this. And I was just misguided. And I think with more time, you start to, you know, and I still find moments where my brain's going this way and probably the crowd is thinking this way. And you've got to like, I think maybe as you get more advanced and more time, you're able to better, I don't know, just like take the scan of the room and go, oh, they were thinking this, and you can course correct and respond appropriately versus on your own little one-way train.
Yeah, I wonder if part of that is disconnecting from caring how it's going a little bit. Because another comic that I love is Daniel Kitson. He's a British comedian who like never tours. You'll never see him unless you go to the UK. He doesn't put out any material. He's a genius. But I've seen him multiple times, and one time I saw him tell a joke about vaguely I remember it was about like kids at a playground or something, and the joke he told the joke, it didn't work, and he literally stopped and he was like, "Why didn't that work?" And he was like, "I've been doing this show for a couple weeks now, and that joke, there's always a laugh right there." So he just asked the audience. He was like, "Why didn't that work?" And he was talking to someone in the front, like, "Okay, so what did you think when I said this?" And then he was like, "Oh, I forgot to say that the playground was across the street from a church or whatever it was, right?" And he was like, "Okay." And he just like, backed it up and like deconstructed it, and then he told it again and it got a laugh. But but it was part of that willingness of him to just be like curious about, I mean, we don't all have the luxury to like deconstruct our own joke in front of an audience, which he has earned, but I think that I think you're constantly calibrating that that version of like, how's the show going for you versus how's it going for the audience. And I probably can never be 100%, but the closer we can get, the better, for sure.
But it is certainly a good call out to tape and watch everything you do to get that third view that you wouldn't normally be able to get on stage.
Yeah, I mean, that's the painful part, is watching it back.
Painful.
You just got to get over it.
Painful. Well, speaking of that, let's go ahead and watch some of your clip. I said I was going to get it from the Riot. I was not able to do that in a timely way, so I've got you at that.
You should talk to someone over there if you know anyone at.
I wish I knew somebody that worked there, but yeah. So let's go ahead and watch this clip of Chris performing stand-up comedy.
Okay, I'm gay and Asian. I would not recommend it. There's a lot of racism in the gay community. Guys will put into their profile, "No Asians." Yes, you never heard of this? Get on the apps, you'll find out. Yeah, they type in their profile, and it's like, "This is racist." And they're like, "No, it's not racist, it's a preference." It's like, it's definitely racist, okay? Because here's the thing. If you look at me, one Asian man, and you're not attracted to me, that's fine. Okay, that's incorrect, but that's fine. But if you extrapolate from that you're not attracted to Asian men, plural, then that is racist, because you're saying that we all look the same, right? I love watching people nod, being like, yes, that is racism. Here's the thing, we don't do that for white guys, okay? We don't say like all white guys look the same. We're not like, I don't need to see Brad Pitt, okay? I've seen Kid Rock. Don't talk to me about this George Clooney, okay? I've seen Mitch McConnell. Let's stop being racist, everybody, please. Especially to Asian people, because I don't like it. Here's the thing, it's so weird that people are racist towards Asian people, because it's really just for this part of our face. Like, I think it's weird I could avoid racism by buying sunglasses. Like, I could fight systemic bias or talk to a politician, or I could just get some Oakleys. This joke is sponsored by Oakleys. Okay, so I've been telling that, this is what's great, right? For the festival, they give you sunglasses, so I just thought I'd bring out the sunglasses and show you what I mean. Watch this transformation. Okay, I'm Chinese. Now, I'm white. Let's go to brunch. Have you watched Ozark? I voted and it made a difference. My name is Chris Grace. You guys have been great.
Oh man, so good.
No notes.
Let's go to brunch.
So what was the origin? How did that bit? Do you recall where the first bones of that started?
The bones of that came from, I think I saw someone, like a racist person, say on Twitter something like, why don't you just get some sunglasses or whatever? Like, I remember seeing that, just being like, and I was like, oh, that is kind of true. I have thought a lot, actually. If you're Asian, like, you do think about your eyes a lot, like, because that is the thing, like, people focus on as being like so crazy. I can't believe you. I mean, I grew up in Houston, so like I had a lot of like people just straight up and not even like mean. They would just like, I had a girl that this was like as an adult, like not kids, as an adult, this lady that I worked with, she was like, how do you see out them little eyes? And I was like, okay. So it is something I've thought about a lot. And then I had the idea of like, okay, what if I talk about, you know, I was like, oh, it'd be funny if it was sponsored by Oakley's or whatever. And a friend of mine actually did say like, oh, why don't you actually get the sunglasses? So, and I will highlight, that was my friend Charlie Lanyon told me that. And I will highlight that one advantage of like being friends with comics and like being collaborative with them is like some of my tags are like my friends would be like, hey, can I pitch you on this? Try this and this at the end. So he just said like, why don't you get some sunglasses? Then I added the stuff about, back then, that was a year ago. I was saying Ozark when Ozark was still on, you know, showing. Now I say Breaking Bad. But like, I do think my personal opinion is I love to watch people's sets and like pitch them tags and whatever. I come from this group of friends of mine in LA where we are like, if I pitch you guys stuff on your material, obviously you can take it or leave it. And I don't want any credit. It's your joke. Like, use whatever I can come up with and just use it as your own. And that's the way me and my friends are over here. So like, I'm very grateful for that collaboration that I have with people because I will say that my friend Jerry Katzman really like clarified why this is a good thing for a couple reasons. But one of them is, yes, obviously, like it's awesome to like get more jokes, right? Get more tags and laughs in your set. But another thing is, if we want to be stand-ups and we want to be like actors and we want to have sitcoms and all that stuff, at some point you're going to have to deliver someone else's joke. And somebody else can see a slight angle on your premise in a way that you wouldn't have thought of, but that you can still own as part of your comic character. And honestly, you're going to have to do that. Like if you want to grow beyond, if you want to just do your stand up and like, is the thing is now people, you kind of have to diversify like your show business interests. Right. And one of those interests is going to be like, we give you a late night talk show. You're not going to write your monologue. Like people are going to write the monologue for you. You're going to have to deliver it. Flip side of that is that, if Brian gets a talk show and he hires me and Drew to be his writers, we got to be able to write in Brian's voice. So if I watch Brian's set, I should be able to pitch him things that I would pitch Brian, but not Drew, you know?
That is a good muscle. So if you aspire to be a writer, a lot of our friends in comedy are looking to get writing gigs. Some of them have recently done that, and then they go on strike. So bad timing. But
right.
But that should be a thing you should be doing. You should be watching other people's sets and trying to write for them as an exercise. I think that would be a healthy thing.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta know who you're talking to, because I have definitely pitched people like I mean, I'll say it to anybody, right? Like I don't know if I don't know you, I'll still be like, hey, can I pitch you a tag on that? And I've had people say, I really don't care. Like if anyone sees me and you have something I could say that will make people laugh, please tell me. But I have I would say 3 or 4 times I've like said, hey, can I pitch you on that one joke? And they'll just be like a couple of times they're just like, no, like, which is totally within their rights, but makes me feel bad.
I think that's such a good thing though. I never not appreciate it. The only time I don't appreciate it, I think, is when it's given when the suggestion takes like 20 minutes to explain, like, okay, just tell me the thing and walk away, or like, don't make it weird for me to have to tell you if I'm going to use it or not, or I don't know. There's just like, don't put pressure on the person to accept it, but say, for what it's worth, here's the thing. I thought this was funny, and then maybe walk away. maybe take a little separation, because it can get weird, because we all want to be the owners. We're stand-ups for a reason. We do ownership a lot, but there's some wonderful things that do come through collaboration. But I
will say the way that I pitch people is I'll say like, hey Drew, like can I pitch you on this one joke?
No, go away.
Exactly. And then I go to Brian and pitch no, but I'll say like, the joke you had about eating at the Arby's. I just thought I was thinking, what if you explored like what if you said like beef and cheddar or something? And I'll often say like, don't, like, this is not the good version of it, like, but the corny version of it would be like, I don't know, beef and cheddar or whatever. I'm just thinking about beef and cheddars.
Are you hungry right now?
Yeah. So I will say that I don't pitch like, I tend not to be like, here's the line I wrote for you. Yeah. I'll just sort of say like, there's a little part I think you could explore more, which is, wait, what if And a lot of it is like, I think a lot of it is like, hey, you established this in the premise, and then you had this other thing. Like, what if you just followed those things a little more? Because I think sometimes, and I'm totally guilty of this, like we'll write a premise and then we'll be like, cool, I got the one laugh off the premise. I got one tag off of it. Cool, I'm on to the next thing. And sometimes it's like, oh no, there's like definitely more laughs in there if you sit in that little area. You've done the work to create the world for that little joke. Unless you're Jesselnick, you know, maybe like live in it a little and like get more out of it.
Sure. Yeah, that's super fun.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and get us into our last segment. Play a quick graphic. It's a little weird. Brace yourself. Here it comes.
Okay.
The segment is called Last Laugh. That was, of course, your tombstone there. Your live funny comic. And the exercise is you write a joke or tell us the joke you want written on your tombstone. It could be yours, one of your comedy heroes. Go wherever you like with it.
Off the top of my head, I was thinking I could have it say gay, fat, and Asian, a true triple threat. That's a joke I wrote like 10 years ago. I still love
it. Triple threat.
Yeah.
Well, dude, thanks so much for coming and chatting and so much good stuff out of the conversation. And it was so great getting to know you better.
Yeah.
In Houston.
Can I just say that, like, I grew up in Houston and I didn't always feel like Houston. I knew Houston's my hometown, but like, I haven't always felt like connected to Houston. And being at the Riot Festival really was like, I was like, oh, I am a Houston boy. Like, I feel like a connection to the town through you guys. I want to shout out Will Loden, who made me feel very welcome there. Nice. A lot of just super friendly people that like I felt at home as an adult creative artist, maybe for like the first time, and I think it was because of the festival.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a really nice compliment, and of course compliments to you on winning that thing. And we've already announced April 4th through 7th next year we're doing it all again. Chris, of course, you've been invited. Drew, I guess we'll have you back. And so all that said, you know, the more that we continue this, you're the first winner of this thing. We'll make it really mean something. We do this 10 years later and you're the first one to win it.
Let's make him host it all.
I'm the DAT fan of the Riot Comedy Festival.
Yeah. Nice. Well, you can find Chris at Chris Grace Comedy. I think you got an Edinburgh thing coming up, don't you?
I do. Mistaken. I'm taking a solo show to Edinburgh Fringe this year. It's called Chris Grace as Scarlett Johansson. It's a biographical show of me playing Scarlett Johansson.
Oh, it's so fun.
Check it out.
Also, like, definitely, what's your Instagram? Because there's some very interesting photos and photoshopping going on from time to time there that I appreciate a lot.
Yes, it's the same thing at Chris Grace Comedy. Occasionally, I put up thirst photos as well, which, you know, I just have to, you know, I have to service all of my fans in whatever way.
Yeah, I have them all screen grabbed, so
yeah,
no worries.
You got them in a special folder.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, thanks for coming on board, and everybody, thanks for listening. This has been Breaking Down Bits.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Breaking Down Bits. You can keep in touch or get more when you follow at Breaking Down Bits on social media, visit the website breakingdownbits.com, or shoot us an email at breakingdownbits@gmail.com.